everyone. My name is Amber, and welcome to our Play Attention webinar today. This is a very specific webinar that we are hosting today on focus training. So individuals that are attending today are current focus accredited professionals with Play Attention. And so we wanted to take some time with all of you today to just chat a little bit more about how to use focus and really how to use it to engage more clients, because it is a really powerful tool in helping you really build your business and provide that really clear pathway for your clients when you're using Play Attention. So again, my name is Amber and I will be your host today. Just a few things before we get started. I'm going to give just a couple minutes for individuals to start jumping on, but we are recording this webinar today, so we will be sending out that replay link. Usually takes about 24 hours after the webinar is over. There is a chat box down below. So as we're going through today, I want this to be more of a conversation. Again, most of you are currently using Focus, so I want you to be able to ask those questions. So it will be more effective for you. So if you have any questions, don't hesitate to type those in the chat box. And then if at any time you get disconnected from the webinar today, just simply click on that Zoom link again, and that will get us connected. We should be right around an hour today, just kind of depends on questions and things that we go through today. But again, I want this to be very interactive. That really does help all of our attendees as we are here. So again, welcome to today's Play Attention webinar. Again, we're going to really focus on focus today. So I would like to start off today about just asking a few individuals that are in the webinar today, are you currently using your focus? So if you are currently using focus, and it doesn't have to be on a regular basis, it can be on a semi-regular basis, please type that in the chat box. So I'm getting some yeses and I'm getting some no's. So that's great. Again, both individuals that are using it, individuals that are not using it, this is going to be effective for both of you, or for all of you that are attending, whether you're doing it one way or the other. For those of you that are using it, are you using it on a regular basis? Meaning, are you using it with all of your clients or a good portion of your clients? Yes or no, you can type that in there for those of you who are using it. So I'm seeing yes, all of it. It's part of our program. I'm seeing yes, a good portion. I'm seeing some depends on the situation. And sometimes that does, that is very common when we're talking about focus. Here at Play Attention, we don't make it a requirement for our clients, but we do use it with a majority of the individuals, especially if we're working with someone that is maybe undiagnosed or they're, just not quite sure. They know that they're struggling with some areas, but it's really hard for them to pinpoint that on there. So we're going to go ahead and get started today. So again, what we're talking about today is engaging potential and current clients. So it doesn't have to be I'm using it with all of my brand new clients. It can be I'm using it with those brand new clients, but I'm also using it with current clients. And then how can I maybe find other individuals to partner with to use focus to really help either expand my business or just even expand that assessment part as we're going through. So when we talk about focus and we talk about Play Attention, your clients are coming to you for direction. Now, most clients will generally have an idea of what the problem is, at least part of it, right? My child is really struggling with homework. I'm always late. I recently got fired because I couldn't complete my tasks. They know the major problem that they're experiencing because they're experiencing it, right? They're going through that struggle. So they're coming to you to help them find a solution, right? And sometimes they don't even know what that solution looks like, but they're coming to you, they're seeing you as an expert. So when we talk about an assessment, specifically our focus assessment, it allows us to define the problem areas. So it gives us that very specific data. It defines those problems for them, and it's going to show them that major issue that they're experiencing, but it's probably going to show some areas that they were very unaware of. One example is I worked with a client. It's been about a year ago, and we did an assessment, a focus assessment, and her impulsivity was very high. And she said, "Wow, I don't feel like I'm impulsive. I just don't feel like I'm that kind of person. I'm not experiencing that." And that is the really interesting thing about executive function and different areas that we're testing in the assessment, because she didn't think of herself as maybe risky or making bad choices. But when we talk about things like impulsivity, it comes up in different ways for different people, right? We always talk about that here at Play Attention, that there's not a one size fits all, right? Everyone is going to be at a different level, and everyone is going to have a little bit different experience of how those areas are showing up. And so we discussed, are you rushed by nature? Are you quick to judgment? Do you sometimes struggle with outbursts? And all of a sudden, the light bulb went off, and she said, I do experience those things. And we were able to define that problem for her. So she knew she was struggling with some areas, but that was a new problem that we were able to identify and define for her. Now, in the focus assessment, we're not only going to be looking at weaknesses, but we're going to be looking at strengths as well. And that's a really important piece that we need to use and to work with, because individuals, now you may have an individual that is struggling in all of the areas of focus, but there still might be an area where we can kind of pull out a strength and bring that positivity to them, to the situation. But we are going to be looking at that weakness as well. And we're also going to be looking at the severity of the weakness. And that's another great area that focus will show us, is not only are they weak in this area, but how weak are they in that area? Are they weaker in performance than they are in distractions? What does that look like? What is the severity of that? How much do we have to put in to their training program to really help them be effective? And it allows us to develop a plan of action. And this is really the foundational key here. And this is why we use it with a majority of our clients here at Play Attention, because it helps us develop that customized training plan. Because as I said, there's not a one size fits all. Everyone's different. So we want to create that plan that's going to work best for that individual, and allows us to do that. And finally, it gives us a baseline. So again, remember, focus is not going to be used as a diagnostic tool, but it is a tool to give us that baseline. It pinpoints where that individual is right now. Now, we're going to talk about how you can use focus as you go through the program. But here we're talking about using focus initially, right? That pre training, getting them started, looking at that, bringing them in the door, showing them, okay, here is where we are struggling or where you are struggling, but here's the clear path to solution. And that is a struggle that we see with a lot of individuals we work with, especially if they've gone through maybe a neuropsych eval or they've recently been diagnosed. So they've been told, well, here are your weaknesses, and then that's it. They don't have a path. They don't have that solution. They just see that there's a problem there, and they don't necessarily see a light at the end of the tunnel. And that's what we want to provide them with their Play Attention program. So attention is obviously one area that we're going to be looking at. But when we start talking about executive function, where attention is very important, we need to have that as a catalyst to spark that brain change. We need to have that as a foundation, but it's just one piece of the puzzle. And we need to provide them with the other pieces of the puzzle so we can really come up with that solution, that clear path for them. And so Play Attention is going to be looking at that attention. How are they able to sustain that attention? But it's also going to look at their processing speed, their impulse control, and their emotional regulation, because those pieces are really important in that foundation of creating that executive function. We're going to be hitting on very specific cognitive training for them, organization, spatial memory, their auditory processing, but we need to have these foundational skills for them to be able to not only create that strong executive function, but to create it with permanency. These are the foundational skills that we need to move forward, and the focus assessment will allow us to assess these areas as we go through. So before we get really in and dig in and dive deep, I wanted to share just a couple pieces or a couple testimonials from some of our current clients that are using Focus on a regular basis and kind of what that looks like for them and how it's been beneficial for them. So we have one professional that uses it in her clinic, and she mentioned we believe Focus is an excellent tool. It shows us how the attentional control of our patients are at the time of the test, right? It's giving us that baseline right now. It's fast, it's easy to use, and it's a snapshot of the four constructs that are necessary for learning. So this professional has a learning clinic, and so it really allows them to look at those constructs of attentional control and relate them to that learning of that individual that they're working with. It's also a useful tool for them to show parents and teachers, right, the source of the problem. And so again, you're going to have some clients that are going to come in and they're going to definitely know the source of the problem. But as I mentioned in my story earlier, there's going to be some areas that they're very unaware of, or they just say, they're failing school. I don't even know what to do. They won't sit still, they won't listen. And so I just don't know what to do to get them over that hump. And so with the focus assessment, you're providing them the source of that problem. You're showing them right there in black and white. They are low in these areas, and that is what's causing the inability to stay focused, the inability to follow through with schoolwork, the inability to sit still. And then when the student's having a learning difficulty, they will do the focus assessment to get a fast, accurate glance of where the problem originates, right? And they use the assessment points them in the right direction. And that's what we're doing. We're using that tool to point us in the right direction to ensure that we're creating that plan that's going to work best for them. Focus also shows parents and teachers the improvements. And we're going to talk about that today because I know a lot of our professionals that are Focus accredited are using Focus as a pre-assessment, but it's very valuable as a post-assessment too, or even a mid-level, because it's the exact same assessment and it's going to show us an apples to apples comparison of where they started and here's where they are after they have the training. And I have an example of that to show you. Since Focus gives us a number for each construct, I'm able to show them the numbers that and the advancements made by the student. Now, generally speaking, we're going to be very aware of the changes we see, but this really gives us that data, those hard numbers that we have, and that can be really powerful. Another one of our professionals mentioned, it's the foundation of our focus. So they see the focus assessment as the foundation. Parents have a better understanding of the four parts of focusing. So they're looking at those four constructs of attentional control, and it really allows them to understand, when my performance is really low and my distractions are really low, I'm generally struggling with someone or I'm working with someone that's struggling with that inattention. And so it allows us to start to see, okay, this individual is more withdrawn in their focus when things become mundane, boring, challenging. They are more internal. And sometimes that's not always as a parent, as someone that really struggles with their focus and they're more on the hyperactive side. They're all over the place. They can't sit still. So it's great to show that and to explain that to parents, provides them a framework, and it compares them to their aged peers. And that is another really valuable tool that Focus provides us with. Remember, it's a norm-based test of attentional control. So what I'm doing here is I am comparing individuals to their peer groups. Because when I do have a younger individual, their impulsivity, the norm range for their impulsivity is going to be higher. Because remember, we build those executive function skills, or we should be building those as we grow up, but we know if there's a comorbidity, it makes it very difficult to grow those. So we're able to compare them to their peer group so we can see, are they below the norm? Are they below their peers? Are they with their peers? Or are they above? And again, the above is showing us that strength. With the peers, that's important. But remember, because that norm range continues to shift, those are still areas that are going to be really valuable for us to train because we want to make sure those individuals are continuing with their peer group. So that's a really important piece when you're doing those focus assessment reviews with the parent. They may see, oh, well, they're in that norm range, then they're okay. That's there's no problem there. Two reasons why we still want to focus on that and still train in that area. Number one, it's a 20-minute snapshot in time. You might have a high achiever that gets in there and they're very focused in that 20 minutes, but that's not reflective to their day to day if they're sitting in a classroom or they're sitting in the office. Also, again, on the norm range is good, but we want to push them past that norm range because remember that norm range is always going to continue to shift. So we want to move them past. So that's a good tool to use if you have a client that's on the norm range. You know, obviously if they're below the norm range, that's very apparent, and the parents or the individual will often, it's easier for them to understand that visually. But when you have somebody on the norm, that's still important for us to focus and train in that area because of those reasons. So again, it's a focus assessments and norm-based test of attentional control. We're comparing individuals to their peer group and we're looking at those 4 areas of attentional control. Just as a reminder, ages 5 all the way into adulthood, focus is works for, it's beneficial for. 5, sometimes you might have a 5 or a 6-year-old that has a hard time getting through the 20 minutes. Because remember, and that's the second piece here, it's a 20-minute assessment, computer based. We're doing it all on the computer. And so we are going to want to really be aware of that for our younger individuals because it may be hard for them to get through that full 20 minutes. And sometimes with their 5 and 6-year-olds, they will maybe have an emotional response when they get into that assessment. They get 5 or 10 minutes in and they start crying, they get upset, they have those big emotional dysregulation because it's very hard for them to be focused for that amount of time. There's nothing wrong with that. Still very valuable information because for that time that they were on there, we're seeing the data, but it also lets us know if an individual has a hard time getting through 20 minutes of the assessment, then we're going to start our play attention plan just in a little bit smaller chunks. Maybe they're going to do 10 minutes 5 or 6 days a week starting out, right? Maybe we're just going to start them with attention stamina and we're going to try that for several days in a row and then progress from there, right? Because we want to meet them where they're at. So that's again, when we have their baseline, we're able to know exactly where they're at right now. So know that even a 5-year-old that can't make it through the 20 minutes, still a very valuable assessment for them. It's going to measure their capacity to choose what to pay attention to and what to ignore. Because remember, that assessment is very mundane. It's slow, it's mundane, it's repetitive. We're putting them in that least ideal situation because we want to see the baseline in that environment. Because when things are fun and exciting, we're able to focus and pay attention to those generally. But in that opposite environment, it's a lot more difficult. So we want to train them or we want to assess them in that environment so we're seeing where they're at. So they have the ability to stay engaged or to lose that. And so it just depend on kind of how their attention is working. The individuals that are a little bit more on the impulsive side, you're going to see them hitting a lot of different keys or hitting the space bar multiple times because they're just trying to get that assessment done, where individuals that are more on the inattentive side will withdraw and they will go within because that's more interesting and they're getting that stimuli that way. It measures their attentional control, the ability to remain focused on goal relevant stimuli and information in the presence of potential interfering distractions. So we are asking them to hit the space bar when they see the yellow star, right? So we're providing them with a task, we're providing them with a goal, but in that environment, not only is it slow paced, but it's also there are distractions there, both visual and auditory distractions. very much kind of like a classroom. And again, it's simple in design. So sometimes our adults will be like, well, what did you give me? But remember, we're providing them that very mundane type of material or information because that's harder for them to pay attention to. So still very, very effective for 5 well into adulthood. So I wanted to show just a couple screenshots for those of you who aren't actively using Focus or don't use it very often. Remember, Focus is a third party program. So it's not within Play Attention. We're using it to create that Play Attention plan, but it is a third party application that you're going to use. So you're going to log into your account. You're going to go, excuse me, to your Focus dashboard. And this is where you're going to find all of your reports that have been completed. And you can simply click on the name of that individual, and that is going to provide you with their report. When you click on their name to look at their report, Focus is going to look to see if you have any credits. Because remember, you're Focus accredited, but every single assessment that you do, you have to have Focus credits for. Those Focus credits are $25, and it's really up to you how you charge for those assessments. We have a wide variety of what professionals do. Sometimes they will offer them for free as a lead magnet to bring individuals into their clinic, into their office, to have that consultation with them, to show them, look, these are the things that you're experiencing right now, but I have a solution for those. So you can do that. I have some individuals that will charge the $25, right? They'll charge $25, and that way they are breaking even on that. Now, granted, you are spending some extra time reviewing it, so it really depends on that. We do here at Play Attention offer them at half price pretty often when we do a webinar, because it is a great way to really show individuals Play Attention, because you're specifically relating Play Attention to exactly what they need assistance with. We have done a lot of where we've offered them for free, but we find that when there is a little bit of cost associated with it, individuals are more likely to go through the assessment and schedule that review. So just kind of a tip for you. Generally, we see that. Some individuals will charge $50 or $60 for that assessment. Again, you're able to kind of do that whatever fits into your into that business plan for you. However, you do have to have credits available to actually run that assessment. You don't need one to send it out, but when you're going to actually review that assessment when it comes back to you, you do have to have a credit available. Again, they're $25 a piece. You can purchase as many credits as you want, and they will sit on your dashboard. Jenny here at Play Attention, she will be your contact for individuals that need additional credits. You can keep a credit card on file if you would like. And then if you want more credits, you just have to shoot Jenny an email and say, Jenny, I want to purchase 10 credits. She will run that credit card for you, and then she will transfer those credits over to your dashboard. During Monday through Friday, it's generally only going to take a couple hours. Over the weekend, we don't have anybody here staffing that. So if you're going to run assessments over the weekend, you're going to want to make sure that you have credits available before the weekend. But it is pretty quick, and that's where you're going to see all of your credits available to you. Then when you're actually creating a assessment for someone, you're going to click on your participants link. Now, after you create them as a participant, you're going to use that home testing link. You're going to simply just go in here. You're going to add a new participant, and then you're going to put their information in, and you're going to want to put their specifically the areas that you need to make sure that you're entering is their name. Now, you can use numbers, you can use letters, you don't have to put their name, just you have to know who that is. If you're going to be sending the assessment to yourself for them to run right there in the office, that's the email you'll use. You need to make sure you include the gender, and you need to include the birth date, because remember, it's norm range. So it's going to look at their birthday. Now, if you put this information in and then you are like, oh my goodness, I put the wrong birthday in, you can go in and adjust this right into Focus, and it's going to adjust it even if they've already taken the assessment. It just adjusts those norm ranges for you. So that's no problem. That can easily be corrected. Then once you create that participant, you can click that home testing code. You can search for your participant here. You're going to put their name in again, and then your email, and then you're going to get that email that will have the specific link that you'll click to do that focus assessment along with the code. They need an ID code and then a home code if they're actually using it at home. So if you need a refresher on that, I'm going to give you an opportunity at the end to schedule some time with me and we can chat through that. So now when we start digging into focus a little bit more, remember there's 4 areas of attentional control that we are looking at. We're looking at their consistency, their performance, how impulsive they are, and then how distractible are they? How do they perform when there's visual and or auditory distractions present? So I wanted to break down these a little bit and show you, because again, we have both individuals here in the webinar today, individuals that are using them fairly regularly and individuals that are accredited but aren't using them very much. So I wanted to give you all just a little bit of visual of what you're going to look at here. And so this is an example of this individual student, Kara, her consistency. So this is her pre-assessment. So this is the baseline assessment that we did here. And the reason why I tell you that is because we did do a post-assessment with her as well. And I'm going to show you those results. But here you see, of course, the light to dark purple is our low to high norm range for and I believe she's 6. Yep, 6-year-old female. And so that's going to show you the range for her consistency. So anywhere between 10% and 51%. So like I said, she is on that norm range, but she's on the low end. We want to move her much further. And a really great way to look at this focus assessment, if you break down that percentage by the time that they did the assessment. So it's 20 minutes. So if they're able to do something 50% of the time, for about 10 minutes, they were able to be consistent for this example. If 25% is only going to be about 5 minutes, right? So that is a really, we find that when we talk to parents and teachers and adults, when we break it down that way, it's easier for them to wrap their minds around that. So only 5 minutes of this assessment was Kara able to remain consistent. And when we talk about consistency, it's the measurement of the quality of reacting in a similar way, right? So being able to do the task multiple times, right? I have accuracy with it. I'm able to do it. I'm sustaining my attention on that mundane, boring, repetitive task. And I'm able to do it time and time again. And that's where sometimes you'll hear from parents or teachers or students or adults, one day I can do all of the things. I can go to the gym. I can be on time to work. I can make sure supper's on the table on time. And then the next day I can't do anything. And that means they're struggling with that consistency. They have the ability, but they don't have the ability to continuously do it time and time again. One little thing happens and it completely derails them off that plan. Same thing with the student. You can say, they knew all their spelling words today. Things were really great. They, followed the rules. They stayed in their seat. And then the next day, it's like a different kid showed up. And that's that consistency. So Kara scored lower than average within her group of 6-year-old females. She may be at times inconsistent with executive function. So it means sometimes she's able to do it, sometimes she's not. So when we talk about consistency plan of action, and when we do a focus assessment with our clients, we have the focus assessment available on Zoom for them because we're obviously doing it virtually. And then we have our game slide up as well. And we go back and forth between them because we want to show them exactly what areas we're going to be putting in that training plan. So Kara will benefit from frequent short breaks during completing the task. She would typically need 1 to 2 minutes in duration, right? So the breaks need to be. So basically it's saying right now, she needs breaks in doing a task. She can't do a task for an extended period of time. She has attention, but she can't sustain that, especially if it's mundane or boring. So what we want to do is we want to build her attention stamina, right? Strengthen that ability to sustain that attention and sustain that attention for multiple minutes, right? Not just I can only do 5 minutes and I have to take a break, that I can do it for 10 minutes, and then I get stronger and I can do it for 15, and then I can do it for 20. And I'm able to consistently build that attention stamina so I can sustain that attention. Additionally, time on task is going to be very beneficial for her with that inconsistency, because inconsistency, we see that a lot of times they'll start the task, but they're not able to complete that task. Or it's really, really hard to get them to start that task. When they finally get on that task, they can get it done. So we're going to work on time on task, where we're going to help them avoid that procrastination, as well as complete those tasks and complete the tasks in the appropriate amount of time. And finally, we're going to put Academic Bridge into her profile, because Academic Bridge is going to allow Kara to practice these skills in everyday life, because we are going to be using those cognitive training modules to build those foundations, to build those new neural pathways. But we also need to have that transfer and generalization. And that is what the Academic Bridge is going to allow us to do. She can read, she can do that homework, you can have conversations, you can do a puzzle. It's really whatever is age appropriate for that individual. But Academic Bridge is going to allow them to work on that transfer and generalization. So we're learning how to do it. And now we're transitioning into that everyday life so we can eventually get to that permanent. In addition, so that shows here the attention stamina, the time on task, the Academic Bridge, and potentially working memory, right? So working memory, oops, let me go back. I went one too far. Let me go back here. And it went too fast for me. So we're going to, and then potentially maybe do working memory with her as well. And so when we talk about our assessments, right, we talk a lot about doing assessments in the beginning of the training, right, before we get started, to help them customize. However, we find that mid and post evaluations can almost be as beneficial, if not more, because it allows us to look at allows us to look, are we on the right path? Do we need to make adjustments with that individual? Mid-level assessments are always beneficial to show us, okay, look, maybe they couldn't get through that 20-minute assessment 20 hours ago, but now they can make it through that 20-minute assessment. Still difficult for them, but now they can make it all the way through. And then the post is going to show us that apples to apples comparison. Look at where they started and look at how much progress they've made through these 40 hours, or whatever that looks like. Remember, 40 hours is that benchmark, but sometimes individuals need a little bit more. So that post evaluation shows us, have we reached our final destination? Are we ready to graduate, or do we need some additional training in certain areas? And so when we look at pre and post, this is Kara. So she went from 6 to 7 during her training. So she was towards, she was probably a little bit into her sixes when she started, and then she turned 7 during it. Really, the norm range doesn't change a whole lot. It goes from 10 to 51, from 16 to 62, because remember, when we talk about consistency and performance, those are our positive benchmarks, right? We're going to move those we want to move those all the way to the right, as far to the right as possible, whereas impulsivity and distractions are more of our negative benchmarks, because they do not support strong executive function. So we want to move those a different way. So even though that norm range goes to 62%, we want to push Kara further. So this shows, and she did 80 sessions, so 40 hours. That's when this assessment was done. So she was doing 2 30-minute sessions a week. So 2 30-minute sessions, 40 hours, that's 80 sessions that she went through. And it shows that she went from 24% in her consistency all the way to 88%. That is a huge change. That's huge improvement that we're seeing. Now, they're going to see in the day-to-day that all of a sudden she can pay attention for longer. She doesn't need all of those breaks, that she's able to start and complete her tasks that she needs to do. But this is so powerful because it shows that data right there. It shows where we started. And look in that with that exact same assessment, look at how much better she does. Well over 15 minutes, she's able to consistently sustain that attention, right? And that's well beyond her norm range. Here is her impulsivity. So we didn't look at impulsivity before. And remember, every exercise we would put into Kara's program is going to work on building impulsivity or impulse control because we want them to be able to stop and think before they react. Now, on our younger individuals, that impulsivity norm range is going to be huge because they're younger, but that doesn't mean we want them to be again in that norm range. So she's on that lower end. Obviously, the further we get to the left-hand side, that's where we want to be with that impulsivity. Because remember, it's that negative benchmark. Impulsivity does not support strong executive function. So for well over 15 minutes of that assessment originally, so 88%, so almost the whole time she was doing that assessment, she was very impulsive. And again, that probably shows up and I'm just hitting the space bar whenever, or I'm hitting a whole bunch of keys because I just am not focused. I don't know what I'm supposed to be doing. I just want this to be done. Now, we put into her program, obviously, different training modules, but every single one of those modules, the ones we talked about earlier, attention stamina, time on task, academic bridge, as well as working memory, all of those have a component of impulse control built into them because this is such an important piece. And because of that, every single time she goes in and trains, she's working on creating that impulse control. And so you see she's gone from 88% all the way down to that 1 percentile. That means that 20 minutes, she was not being impulsive. She was able to engage. And notice when she's not being impulsive, that consistency gets much better for her. So becoming accredited, managing your focus assessment. So who do you use focus with, right? So we've talked about a couple of options right off the bat, and this is really beneficial for individuals that are currently using focus, right? So you're currently using focus with your current clients. So, or potential clients, right? So that's very common. That's what we see most individuals will use focus with. Someone new comes to them, they're interested in play attention, they're going to do a pre-assessment. All right. They're doing a pre-assessment. Defining that problem, showing the strengths and weaknesses, the severity of the weaknesses, and then that very detailed solution. Okay. That is the most common. However, what we don't see as common that we have talked about is new clients. So that's potential. I'm sorry, I kind of got ahead of myself. That was really new clients that I just talked about. Potential would be I offer a webinar to a group of individuals. So I am going to do a webinar. I'm going to host a webinar. I'm going to talk about play attention in that webinar. And for everyone that attended that webinar, I'm going to offer them a focus assessment, whether I offer it to them for free, half price, whatever that looks like. But those are people that are not like, I don't even know about play attention, but now I'm offering them something to share more about them. So potential clients. So that's sometimes we see that, but for sure with new clients, and that's what I spoke about before, is where I have somebody, they're interested in play attention, and so they're going to get started with me, and I'm going to do that free assessment with them. Current clients, we don't see as much of, and that's where we talked about the mid and post. So mid is going to tell us this is where we're at right now, and this is really great. A mid is something that you can especially use with your adults, because sometimes adults are going through the program. Obviously, they're finding some of the training a little mundane, a little boring, because that's essentially what we're doing. We're doing that on purpose. Because if we give you something super fun and exciting and interesting, it's very easy for you to pay attention to that, right? So we want to put you in that least ideal situation, and that's what we're doing with play attention. Now, remember, it's still meeting you exactly where you're at and challenging you from there, but a mid-level assessment is really good to show your adults, look, you are making progress. Look at the progress that you're making. And so you could build that into their price initially and say, okay, I'm going to offer you a 3 focus assessment package, right? So for this amount of money, you'll actually have 3 focus assessments, and we'll do one now, we'll do one at about 20 hours, and we'll do one at about 40 hours, right? So you have that opportunity built in. Or if you're working with someone and they're like, am I making progress? What does this look like? You can offer them that mid-level assessment and say, hey, well, let's look at that. Generally, with a focus assessment, about 20 hours of training is when we don't want to do it really in between 0 and 20. There's not going to be as big of results in that. So that's kind of that recommendation that we provide to you, that you're getting at least 20 hours of training in between each assessment that you do. However, there are other ways that you can use these focus assessments, right? So you can partner with an organization. So maybe you partner with a nonprofit that works with individuals, and maybe you partner with them and you're going to start offering play attention training to them, right? Maybe there is a nonprofit that has grant funds available, or they're going to get grant funds available. Because remember, play attention can be categorized as an educational tool. And so there are educational funds out there, grant funds available for organizations, especially if they're dealing with maybe low income or minority groups, where you can partner with them and then you can offer these assessments to their clients. They can do them right there in the office, and then you can potentially work with them for play attention. So that is a really great way to go out and to kind of expand not only your program, but your ability to show those assessments that are available. 20 minutes. It's very simple to do. There's no reading, no writing that needs to be done, but it really gives us a clear understanding of what that individual is struggling with. Another way that we can use that focus is a partnership with schools. So I have some professionals that work directly with schools. And so they go in and they, of course, show their play attention, or maybe they know somebody in that school. But this would be a really great opportunity for you to, offer these assessments to the school and say, we see, maybe, the school's underperforming, or they have a higher level of maybe, individuals that need additional assistance or things like that in the school. And so it would be a really great opportunity to take those assessments and to share that and to provide that to the school. When a school does play attention, because of cost, they very rarely will do focus assessments. So this is a really great tool that you can use to partner with the schools to provide them with a service that maybe they aren't able to do on their own. Additionally, maybe there's parents in the school, right? Maybe you partner with the school and you do the assessments, and then you connect with the parents, and you do the training individually with the student. So there's a lot of ways outside of the box that we can work on using these assessments to really showcase how play attention will help them with their solution. That's what we want to use it for. We want to use it as a tool to get us to that play attention, because we know play attention works. We know it builds executive function skills, but we need to show individuals how specifically for them it is going to build those skills, right? Here are the areas that we need to build. This is your exact plan. And that is why it's really powerful here at Play Attention when we provide that in conjunction to discussing play attention. So you have engaged your client by providing a clear path to success. So if anybody here, I have a few professionals here that aren't focused accredited yet. So if you're thinking, oh, well, I don't know, is this going to benefit me? It will benefit your organization, your company, your business, because you are engaging your client. You are providing them value added because you are showing them the clear path to success. You are showing them in black and white, here's those areas of difficulty, here's those areas of weakness. This is how we are going to create a solution. This is how we're going to get to that success as we go forward. So that kind of wraps up what I have today. I'm going to open the floor to some questions here in just a second, but we have two options for next steps. Number one, if you want to talk a little bit more about your focus program, you're like, I haven't started it yet, so I need a little bit more tools on how to do that. I need a little bit more assistance, and you want to chat a little bit more about that with us directly, just type call. If you type call in the chat box, we will reach out to you and we'll schedule a quick phone call, or we can do a Zoom, whatever you need, whatever you want to talk through. It just kind of depends if you need us to show you some stuff. Obviously, Zoom is the best option for us, but if you're interested in just talking a little bit more about your focus and how we can expand that a little bit more, you can type in call. If you're like, wow, it's time for me to get some credits. It's time for me to build up that so I can start using these with clients. You can type in credits and we will connect with you. I'll get you connected with Jenny and we can get those credits purchased and then put over onto your dashboard. So questions, please feel free to type those in. I'm going to wait a couple minutes to see if any questions come up. But feel free, if you don't have any questions and maybe you don't have time to listen to see if there's any questions, you can definitely hop off. We will again be sending out that recording about, usually takes about 24 hours. So it'll be sometime tomorrow morning, sometimes early Friday. We will be providing you with that, the recording, so you can take a look at what we've talked about today. So I've got a couple of people here that are interested in credits, couple phone calls. Any questions, please feel free to type those in. Sharon, I'll reach out to you with Jenny's number, but you can always call Jenny. She is located on the tech support number, and our tech support number here at Play Attention is 828-676-2242. Okay, so 2242, 828-676-2242. But Sharon, I'll send you an email with that so you have that and you can reach out to Jenny directly as well. Any other questions that I can answer? Let's see here. Let me scroll through. Like I said, I've got some individuals that are interested in some follow-up, but I am not seeing any more questions. But again, if you have any questions, you can always reach out to me. You can send me an email, give me a call. My number is 828-676-2241. So Jenny's 2242, I'm 2241. Oh, okay, so Sharon asked, how long does it take for the results to get back? As soon as that student is done, you're gonna have those results. So as soon as they complete that 20-minute assessment, those results will show up on your dashboard. Now, if they stop the assessment early, it will cancel out that assessment and they will have to go through that process again. So if you have a student that after 5 or 10 minutes refuses to finish, you do have to let the assessment continue to run until it times out at 20 minutes. But you'll know that. You'll know where they stopped in that. But as soon as it's completed with 20 minutes, it completes, and then those results will show up right away on your dashboard. As long as you have a credits available, you click that and you have it. So you could bring a client in you could schedule time to do an assessment review with a client. And if you blocked out about 40 minutes to an hour, you could go through that whole process with them. Again, it's going to take them 20 minutes to do that assessment. And then once the assessment's done, it takes us about 30 to 45 minutes to review that assessment with them. So with our clients, they're doing their assessment at home. We're doing it all virtually. So they'll do their assessment, let us know that it's been completed. And then we will, once it's completed, they'll let us know, and then we'll schedule a 30 to 45 minute follow-up with them over Zoom so we can do that. But if you're doing that focus right there in the office, if you block off about an hour of time, you're going to be able to go through that whole process with them right there. So great question. Brenda, yes, I will reach out to you with that information, so no problem. Well, I want to thank all of you for attending today. I hope you were able to take at least something from what we discussed today. Again, if you have any additional questions, please reach out to me. I'm more than happy to help you through the process. And you have a great rest of your week. Thank you so much and take care.